certain notable point on the earth. It's called the equator. So here we have, and you need to understand a lot about the occult. Let's use Albert Pike's Morals and Dogma. No, we use him a lot. Let's use Dan Brown, because I don't like him. Let's use Dan Brown. This represents, in fact, I'm going to put this on top of Dan Brown. This is my King James Bible, and this is Dan Brown. These are opposites of one another. This is like God, and this is like, the Illuminati beast devil, okay? They're opposites of each other. Now, in the biblical context, when you look all through the Scriptures, you see that light, this, doesn't mingle with darkness. It's not supposed to, okay? God says keep them separate. So here we have the sons of God, masculine angels. Here we have the daughters of men. And they're supposed to be separate. God did not allow angels to marry human women. And yet they did. They fused themselves together. So when you understand, when you see symbolism, when you see a woman, a statue of a goddess, think about that, Mystery Babylon the Great, and you're not supposed to have any statues of anything in heaven and the earth or underneath the earth. You see a statue of a goddess, and she's holding a pair of balances in her hand with scales, and they're balanced out. You say, oh, that's the symbol of justice that runs our courtrooms. No, this is the pairing or the fusion together of things that are opposite. And put my Bible over here because the Bible has to stay separate from the lost symbol, the lost word. Anyway, so you have this thing called the equator. And you have the fusion together of things that are north and south. Let me show this to you in a graphic formation. This makes the symbol that we have been dealing with in many of our videos called as above, so below. And I want you to notice that the Haitian earthquake happened first. That's as above. The Chilean earthquake happened second. That is so below. It represents the fusion of things that are opposite together. The kingdom of the Antichrist up in the sky being brought down to the earth. I want you to remember this, and I'm going to show you. In fact, here's a symbol of as above, so below. Notice the hand pointing up and the hand pointing down. That represents as above, so below. You see in all sorts of imagery. The reflecting pool in Washington, D.C., when you look out across the pond there, the reflecting pool in Washington, D.C., you see an obelisk pointing up and you see an obelisk pointing down. That is as above, so below. Represents the fusion of the two kingdoms together. The Masonic square and compass is the epitome of as above, so below. The as above would represent Osiris, the sun god. So below would represent the reproductive earth, or Isis, or Ishtar, or Ashtaroth, or Venus, or Diana, or Shingmu, or the Virgin Mary. All of these concepts are related together, related to the earth, and they're fused together to bring forth Horus, who is going to be the God over all this world, so that he is God, sitteth in the temple of God, which is us, the human body, showing himself that he is, capital G, God. This is what this symbolism represents of the two earthquakes, north and south, fused together. And I want you to understand this from the biblical context. Genesis 7:11. They have really good chili dogs there at 7-Eleven. Anyway, and I have to quit eating because the chili just like, it really bothers me, but it's really good. Anyway, Genesis 7:11, the Bible says, in the 600th year of Noah's life, in the second month, in the 17th day of the month, remember that the Bible was accurate in identifying the exact day that the days of Noah started. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the second month, in the 17th day of the month, the same day were all the fountains of the great deep broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened. This imagery here is where the water came from. The water came from so below and as above. It came from both directions. In the last days, the kingdom that we're looking at, Daniel saw this and John saw this. Daniel saw it as beasts rising up out of the sea, the fountains of the great deep opening up. John sees the angelic realm in Revelation chapter 12 being cast down to the earth. John sees that. And so here we have these two rebellious groups of angels that are descending and ascending upon planet Earth. And that's the symbolism that you get with these two earthquakes. Now, here's the interesting thing about all of this, is I've been studying this, and I haven't really put this out in a way that I think would be understandable by a lot of people, but I'm starting to get some things. I'm starting to understand some things. And all the research I've done, and even Dan Brown talks about it, he alludes to it by way of noetic science in the lost symbol. They're talking about, they say that your DNA has to be transformed. Because, the way God wrote it, it was all flawed and faulty and everything like that. It needs to be transformed by adding this triple helix thing. And they said, and all the New Agers and all this new science and noetic science all teaches that DNA can be transformed by way of the right frequencies. And I started thinking about that. What is this frequency thing? What does all that have to do with? And I don't find the word frequency in the King James Bible, so it's kind of really throwing me. And then I remembered that frequencies are waves. What happens when the fountains of the great deep break up and the windows of heaven open up? What do you have? You have waves. And I want to look at just a couple of verses that's going to tie into all of this concerning the flood. Remember, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be at the coming of the Son of Man. This is what God said was going. And all of these, we look at the Bible, I'm so glad we have a Bible. I am. I'm so glad that we're not left up to Marilyn Ferguson here to try to tell us the truth, because she's not. She's not going to tell you the truth in here. Neither is Albert Pike, neither is Dan Brown, neither is Manly Hall, neither is Led Zeppelin, Lady Gaga. We won't talk about that yet. But anyway, these people won't tell you the truth, but I believe the Bible will tell you the truth. And it will. God said, call unto me and I will answer thee and show thee great and mighty things that thou knowest not. And I said, God, show me frequencies in the Bible. Show me how this frequency thing is going to change man's DNA. I want you to listen to this. As it was in the days of Noah. Psalm 18 verse 4. The sorrows of death compassed me. The floods of ungodly men made me afraid. The sorrows of hell compassed me about. Think about the fountains of the great deep opening up. That is the sorrows of hell. That word sorrow, a King James Bible word, is related in the Bible to the sorrows of a travailing woman. What happens when a woman is about ready to give birth? The fountains of the great deep open up. Uterine water and seawater, they're like the same salinity factor. God makes them together. But anyway, the sorrows of hell compassed me about. The snares of death prevented me. Psalm 65:7. Which stilleth the noise of the seas, the noise of their waves, and the tumult of the people. Let me just throw this in here, because I have nothing better to do today, so I'm just going to throw things in. I want you to think about how New Agers reach this nirvana state, how they achieve this enlightenment. I want you to think about how they do this. I want you to think about Tibetan Buddhist monks. When you walk into a Buddhist monkery and you hear these Buddhist monks and they're doing something. Oh, oh. The word Om, New Age chant, those who practice yoga, which you shouldn't do, and you shouldn't go to church and practice yoga, is all about this mantra, this repetitive sound, this wavelength, this frequency. And David calls it the sorrows, the floods of ungodly men, the noise of their waves, the tumult of the people. Dan Brown writes about in The Lost Symbol about noetic science teaching